Hello, I am here to refute the claim that it is more beneficial for freshmen to live at the dorms of Cal Poly than commuting or living in the suites. He supports his claim by saying, number one, that there are more available resources to you, number two, that it's easier to make connections, and number three, that staying on campus prevents doing bad things on the weekends. Now the issue with the first one, so some definitions before we continue. MASH, in case you don't know what it is, it's a tutoring for math, arithmetic, and science. The first thing that I found was a problem with this speech was that MASH isn't just available to people who live on campus, it's available to everyone. It's open from Monday to Thursday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. and on Fridays from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. So there's plenty of time for you to go to MASH if you commute. The second thing is that office hours are easier to get to. Now, while this might apply more to commuting because there's commuting time, living on the suites is actually closer than if you're traveling to one of the academic buildings than living in the dorms. Being someone who has lived in the dorms my freshman year and in the suites currently, I can vouch for that. The second point that he makes was that it's easier to make connections if you live in the dorms. Now, he states that it is proven that students learn more and work more efficiently in groups. I think that this is a little bit too idealistic. Now, from personal experience, I can say that I get distracted really easily in groups. And there was actually a study conducted by Neil Miller. Anyways, he says that students may engage in extra time time-consuming conversation and debates. They have to introduce ideas and work through group conflicts to come to a conclusion, which would lead to longer times for debates. And if you're trying to get to a conclusion, it's really not that efficient. The third point that he makes is that staying on campus prevents doing bad things on the weekends. He supports this by saying that everything is closed but the library, and that dorm monitors won't let students smoke weed, drink, or anything bad. Now, so last year when I lived in the dorms, my RA was actually evicted for smoking weed. So I think this is a little bit unapplicable. But that is not to say that that is not to fully put it aside because dorm monitors do monitor that kind of thing. Going back to the third point, staying on campus prevents doing bad things on the weekends. It is by your own choice that you go and do these bad things. You can choose not to do them, or you can choose to do them. In conclusion, while it may seem more beneficial for freshmen to live in the dorms, commuting or living in the suites is just as beneficial. Thank you.
All right, the main and secondary claims are labeled pretty clearly. You define what the MASH thing is. I thought that your argument on the first point was the most straightforward one, and that is that it's available to everybody. And then you list the hours, and I'm going, well, if you live on campus and, what's the advantage of living on campus if it's only available to you during regular school hours? It's not available after 9 p.m. when most people who are on campus would be able to take use of it because they're not in class. And on the weekends, it's not open at all. I think that's the way you present that argument and add a little bit more to it. But you've got the right claim here, and that is that it's not exclusive. Anybody can take advantage of those kinds of programs, and I thought that was a reasonable argument to make there. I didn't understand what the office hours argument was, and you mentioned living on the suites versus in the dorms, and you've got a personal experience, and I don't know what that meant. I couldn't figure out what your inference was based on the way you presented the argument there, so that was just unclear. On the second point, you did a good job listing the idea of making of what the advocate's claim was, and then you kind of have a counterclaim that you're presenting. It's a reasonable counterclaim. You do provide a little bit of information or evidence to suggest that there might in fact be drawbacks from other people there. I think there's probably a lot of evidence that suggests that the presence of other people can be distracting in a lot of ways. I don't know that you want to argue that collaborative learning is necessarily more time-consuming, but I do think that there's an argument to be made that, for instance, when you're operating in a social context with other people too, that there's a tendency for people to wander off the topic. I think that might be the better argument there, because it comes down to sounding like, wow, you spend extra time debating when you could just make your decision. Isn't that what we're trying to figure out? What's the value of debating? To make better decisions? Is the goal to make the decision, or is it to make a better decision? I think you're making an argument here for the other, for the collaborative. I think the one you want to make is that there's a distraction that goes on. That's the real problem. And the bad things happening, I think, your example, is a good one. It's hard to document. I don't want to go looking around for who the RAs were that got tossed out of the dorm. But what was the advocate's evidence on this particular point? I think that there's a challenge to be made there. All right.